लाइफ में लेना देना तो चलता रहता है। इधर फ्लेक्सी लोन से बोरो कर लिया और उधर बाय मॉम डैड का वेकेशन डन। शादी का डिसीजन लिया, फ्लेक्सी लोन से और बोरो किया। प्रमोशन मिला तो ये लो थोड़ा लोन वापस कर दिया। थैंक यू। नए इंटीरियर्स का डील किया, फ्लेक्सी लोन से फिर थोड़ा ले लिया। ईयर एंड बोनस मिला तो इस बार लोन ज्यादा वापस कर दिया। लाइफ में लेना देना चलता रहेगा तो लोन्स में क्यों नहीं। इसीलिए फ्लेक्सी लोन फ्रॉम बजाज फिनसर्व एक ऐसा लोन जो जब चाहे बोरो करें, जैसे चाहे रीपे करें, वो भी चुटकी में। थिंक इट डन विद बजाज फिनसर्व।
हेलो, हर सीजन के लिए नए इंटीरियर्स।
हाँ, वो भी हर रूम के लिए।
फ्रिज, स्मार्टफोन या बड़ा टीवी,
तीनों क्यों नहीं?
अरे ये तो शॉपिंग लिस्ट में नहीं था।
सो अब शॉपिंग कार्ट में तो है। सॉरी।
अच्छा, नए आउटफिट्स की विश लिस्ट।
विश क्यों? Just add to cart and buy.
तो ये सब EMI पे?
और वो भी चुटकी में। On India's fastest growing EMI network. Think it done with Bajaj Finserv.
सर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। साहब, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। हुजूर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता।
अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान।
अपनों को खुशियां दिलाना आसान नहीं बनाते तो आगे कैसे बढ़ते। इसीलिए हम जो भी करते हैं उसे बेहतर बनाते आ रहे हैं, बनाते रहेंगे। बजाज फिनसर्व, थिंक इट डन।
माँ के बेडरूम का एसी या लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई, लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई, लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई। पुणे, पटना, चेन्नई, मथुरा या फिर बेगूसराय, या फिर बेगूसराय। नए घर के लिए चाहिए 4K टीवी हाई फाई, या फिर वाइफ को चाहिए लेटेस्ट स्टाइल। EMI है ना, EMI है ना, EMI। मॉड्यूलर किचन में पुराना फ्रिज क्यों है भाई?
शादी है नहीं, मैट्रेस पुराना है भाई। अक्खा इंडिया बोले भाई प्राइजेस है हाई। बेस्ट ही खरीदना है तो अपने EMI स्टोर पर आए।
EMI है ना, EMI।
अब काशी हो या वाशी, महंगा लगे तो EMI और बेस्ट ही चाहिए तो भी EMI, क्योंकि बजाज फिनसर्व का EMI है ना। विजिट www.emistore.com।
EMI है ना, EMI है ना, EMI।
नाची 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 नाची। धोखा है धोखा, धोखा ना खाओ जी। नाची 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 नाची। इंश्योरेंस फ्रॉड से बचना है बहुत जरूरी जी। नाची 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 नाची। वो एजेंट है या फ्रॉड पता लगाओ जी। एक्स्ट्रा ऑफर के झांसे में कहीं फंस ना जाओ जी।
अगर कोई अनजान कॉलर इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी डिटेल्स मांगे तो कह देना उनको
मिलके स्कैम को एंड करो, हमेशा सेफ रहो जी।
Always verify the caller and do not surrender your insurance for attractive offers. हमेशा सावधान रहे, safe रहे. Issued in the interest of public awareness by Bajaj Finserv.
नाची 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 नाची। धोखा है धोखा, धोखा ना खाओ जी। नाची 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 नाची। जो होगा सो होगा ऐसे ना सोचो जी कॉल पे कोई पूछे ओटीपी दो ना जी तो कह देना उनको मिलके स्कैम को एंड करो हमेशा सेफ रहो जी
Being a hero is all about heart. It's not about ruling the world. It's about owning it. It's not about winning a race. It's about delivering a smile to the human race. It's about a spirit that just cannot be confined by geographies. It's about the heart that beats for the future and a soul that echoes the values of generations. And yet, being a hero is never about the hero. It's about the millions who celebrate them. Hero Motorcorp, the motorcycle leader. There's a gush of wind that hums a sweet song. There's a gush of wind that fights like a hero to fill the world with possibility. There's a gush of wind that jumps across oceans and mountains, embracing the entire planet. There's a gush of wind that blows away darkness. There's a gush of wind that blows for humanity. Because at Hero, we care.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Today is about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Our today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
Behold, the story of victory, of life over malady. Behold the saga of power, of science over sickness. Behold the tale of triumph, of dedication over disease. Behold the rise and rise of Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited, one of India's largest privately held pharmaceutical companies based out of Ahmedabad, Gujarat, India. Cadila Pharmaceuticals was born out of the vision of a legend who left an indelible mark in the chronicles of Indian pharmaceuticals industry. He was Indravadan Ambalal Modi, the founder chairman of the company, rightfully christened as the Medicine Man of India. His vision to alleviate pain of the underprivileged through research-driven innovations has been driving Cadila Pharmaceuticals for more than 6 decades now. Innovations which are backed by the key strengths of the company, the state-of-the-art manufacturing and research facilities. The flagship manufacturing facility at Dholka, Gujarat, sprawls over 100 acres. This avant-garde facility is US FDA approved, besides meeting most of the stringent quality standards across the globe. It manufactures tablets, capsules, injectables, liquids, and orals. The second formulations manufacturing facility is located at Samba in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The API facilities at Ankleshwar, Gujarat, manufacture a large number of key APIs and intermediates at this US FDA and ISO 9002 and ISO 14001 accredited plant. The company also has set up its first ever overseas formulation manufacturing facility at Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. This world-class facility is the only WHO CGMP compliant manufacturing facility in the region. More than 850 products spread across 12 specialties with many of India's top brands in its basket. Great goals are defined by far-sighted vision and achieved by seamless teamwork. A multicultural, multilingual and multinational workforce of over 7,000 employees is truly the propelling power of the company. Not just in the domestic market, the company has a wide global footprint with over 1,000 marketing authorizations across 85 countries. Its international sales force of over 150 highly diversified and versatile personnel lends it an outreach that blankets the globe. As the company grows, so does its commitment to research. Manned by more than 350 scientists, the R&D facilities of Cadila Pharmaceuticals at Dholka, Gujarat is an institution of breakthrough innovations. To take the focus on innovation to the next level, it partners with leading international companies to discover newer treatments. The Cadila Pharmaceuticals Group is gigantic. Its group companies complement and expand the dynamic vision of the company across new avenues of healthcare and newer fast-paced business areas. Cadila Pharmaceuticals is a gentle giant. Decades of dedicated research, groundbreaking healthcare innovations, and worldwide impact proves the infinite potential of one powerful emotion. Care. The success of Cadila Pharmaceuticals bears testimony to the fact that the care continues.
आने वाले कल की दस्तक हमें सुनाई देती है, नई मंजिल है जिस ओर हमें वो दिशा दिखाई देती है। नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए जोश से निकल पड़े हम, आने वाला कल होगा हमारा। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
और नए इंडिया के सफर में टेक्नोलॉजी की शक्ति लेकर आपका भागीदार रहेगा रिलायंस। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
लाइफ में लेना देना तो चलता रहता है। इधर फ्लेक्सी लोन से बोरो कर लिया और उधर बाय मॉम डैड का वेकेशन डन। शादी का डिसीजन लिया, फ्लेक्सी लोन से और बोरो किया। प्रमोशन मिला तो ये लो थोड़ा लोन वापस कर दिया, थैंक यू। नए इंटीरियर्स का दिल किया, फ्लेक्सी लोन से फिर थोड़ा ले लिया। ईयर एंड बोनस मिला तो इस बार लोन ज्यादा वापस कर दिया। लाइफ में लेना देना चलता रहेगा तो लोन्स में क्यों नहीं। इसीलिए फ्लेक्सी लोन फ्रॉम बजाज फिनसर्व एक ऐसा लोन जो जब चाहे बोरो करे, जैसे चाहे रीपे करे, वो भी चुटकी में। थिंक इट डन विद बजाज फिनसर्व।
हेलो, हर सीजन के लिए नए इंटीरियर्स?
हाँ, वो भी हर रूम के लिए।
फ्रिज, स्मार्टफोन या बड़ा टीवी?
तीनों क्यों नहीं?
अरे ये तो शॉपिंग लिस्ट में नहीं था।
So, अब शॉपिंग कार्ट में तो है। सॉरी।
अच्छा, नए आउटफिट्स की विश लिस्ट।
विश क्यों? Just add to cart and buy।
तो ये सब EMI पे?
और वो भी चुटकी में। On India's fastest growing EMI network. Think it done with Bajaj Finserv.
सर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। साहब, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। हुजूर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता।
अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान।
अपनों को खुशियां दिलाना आसान नहीं बनाते तो आगे कैसे बढ़ते। इसीलिए हम जो भी करते हैं उसे बेहतर बनाते आ रहे हैं, बनाते रहेंगे। बजाज फिनसर्व, थिंक इट डन।
माँ के बेडरूम का एसी या लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई, लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई, लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई। पुणे, पटना, चेन्नई, मथुरा या फिर बेगूसराय,
या फिर बेगूसराय।
नए घर के लिए चाहिए 4K टीवी हाई फाई, या फिर वाइफ को चाहिए लेटेस्ट स्टाइल। EMI है ना, EMI है ना, EMI।
मॉड्यूलर किचन में पुराना फ्रिज क्यों है भाई?
शादी है नहीं, मैट्रेस पुराना है भाई। अक्खा इंडिया बोले भाई प्राइजेस है हाई, बेस्ट ही खरीदना है तो अपने EMI स्टोर पर आए।
EMI है ना, EMI।
अब काशी हो या वाशी, महंगा लगे तो EMI और बेस्ट ही चाहिए तो भी EMI, क्योंकि बजाज फिनसर्व का EMI है ना। विजिट www.emistore.com।
EMI है ना, EMI है ना, EMI।
Naji, 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 naji. धोखा है धोखा, धोखा ना खाओ जी. नाजी, 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 नाजी. इंश्योरेंस फ्रॉड से बचना है बहुत जरूरी जी. नाजी, 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 नाजी. वो एजेंट है या फ्रॉड पता लगाओ जी. एक्स्ट्रा ऑफर के झांसे में कहीं फंस ना जाओ जी.
अगर कोई अनजान कॉलर इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी डिटेल्स मांगे तो कह देना उनको.
नाजी, 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 नाजी. मिलके स्कैम को एंड करो, हमेशा सेफ रहो जी.
Always verify the caller and do not surrender your insurance for attractive offers. हमेशा सावधान रहे, safe रहे. Issued in the interest of public awareness by Bajaj FinServ.
Naji, 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 naji. धोखा है धोखा, धोखा ना खाओ जी. नाजी, 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 नाजी. जो होगा सो होगा, ऐसे ना सोचो जी. नाजी, 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 नाजी. कॉल पे कोई पूछे OTP दो ना जी.
तो कह देना उनको.
नाजी, 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 नाजी. मिलके स्कैम को एंड करो, हमेशा सेफ रहो जी.
Being a hero is all about heart. It's not about ruling the world. It's about owning it. It's not about winning a race. It's about delivering a smile to the human race. It's about a spirit that just cannot be confined by geographies. It's about the heart that beats for the future and a soul that echoes the values of generations. And yet, being a hero is never about the hero. It's about the millions who celebrate them. Hero Motorcorp, the motorcycle leader. There's a gush of wind that hums a sweet song. There's a gush of wind that fights like a hero to fill the world with possibility. There's a gush of wind that jumps across oceans and mountains, embracing the entire planet. There's a gush of wind that blows away darkness. There's a gush of wind that blows for humanity. Because at Hero, we care.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
Behold, the story of victory, of life over malady. Behold the saga of power.
And a very warm welcome to each one of you to the 27th CII Partnership Summit 2021, Partnering for Building a New World. And a very warm welcome to the panelists of this session, Coordinating Global Business Leadership for Growth, Role of B20. Your chair and moderator for this session is Ms. Shobna Kamineni, past President CII and Executive Vice Chairperson, Apollo Hospitals Enterprise Limited, India. Before I ask Ms. Shobna to take the session forward, I'd like to ask them to play a small film which will show you CII's engagement with B20. Can we have the film, please?
As India readies to take over the G20 presidency at the end of 2022, as well as host the G20 summit in 2023, CII gears up with its B20 engagement initiatives. Business Group, B20 being the most prominent among the various engagement groups under G20, CII has been integrally involved with it since its inception as the sole Indian business association representing Indian industry. CII engages with the B20 Secretariat of the country holding the G20 presidency. CII also organizes an annual policy outreach event in India for the incumbent B20 presidency, with participation from B20 chair and the chairs of various task forces under B20. CII also engages with the B20 process through Global Business Coalition, a group of apex industry associations from the G20 countries that provide inputs to the country holding the G20 presidency. Other than regular policy inputs to the G20 B20 process, CII has also taken a lead in 2014 in drafting 2 position papers for the B20 coalition on infrastructure and investment and fiscal responsibility. CII has also prepared position papers on the Indian industry perspective on food security and international mobility of labor for the Ministry of Finance. CII attended the B20 Australia Summit in 2014, and a 23-member delegation from CII-YI or Young Indians also participated in the Youth 20 or Y20. CII represented Indian industry at the B20 Leaders Summit held in 2014 on the margins of the G20 Summit in Brisbane. Business leaders from 18 G20 countries met at this summit to discuss the strategy to take forward the business agenda in sync with priorities of G20 leaders. The then Deputy Prime Minister of Turkey, Mr. Ali Babakan, attended the B20 Regional Consultation Forum meeting in New Delhi in 2015, which was hosted by CII in partnership with B20 Turkey. The key recommendations from this consultation process led to 3 I's: inclusiveness, implementation, and investment, along with continuity and connectivity between the businesses and policymakers. A 10-member delegation from CII represented Indian industry at the B20 Turkey Summit held in 2015, which was aimed at bringing a new impetus to the B20 process by developing an inclusive approach to support global recovery and robust growth. CII also represented the Indian industry in the B20 summits held in China in 2016, Germany in 2017, Argentina in 2018, Japan in 2019, Saudi Arabia in 2020, and Italy in 2021. CII actively participated and nominated its industry members into various task forces created under the aegis of these respective presidencies. CII has already commenced initiatives to engage industry members and institutionalize the relations with other engagement groups to help Government of India in developing agenda for its presidency. As part of this initiative, the Coalition of Indian G20 Engagement Groups, or CIEG, was launched on 23rd July 2020 with Confederation of Indian Industry, or CII, Research and Information System for Developing Countries, or RIS, and Indian National Science Academy, or INSA. These preparatory groundworks align with CII's endeavor to support the government in preparing the agenda for its 2023 presidency. CII is committed to extend all support to Government of India during India's G20 presidency and would play a much more active role in the activities of B20 India.
And with that, I'd like to invite Ms. Shobna Kamineni to take this session forward.
Renuka, thank you. Good afternoon, and I'm Shobna Kamineni from Apollo Hospitals and the former president of CII. I take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Emma Marsicaglia. She's the chair B20 Italy 2021 and the CEO of Marsicaglia Holding Italy. Ms. Hani Rosenbaum, the executive director of business at OECD France. Ms. Marta Blanco Quesada, the president CEOE International and the Spanish representative at the B20. Ms. Shinta Kamdani, who will join us via video, is the chair B20 Indonesia 2022 and the CEO of Sintesa Group Indonesia. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, first I must tell you that I did a double take when I saw this panel. Normally when you have all women, as this panel is, I thought, is this some women-centric thing that they normally put you at? And I was pleasantly surprised to see that this is indeed a session on coordinating global business leadership for growth, the role of B20. So, which is, I think, prescient because it's probably the future of the important role women will play. So, happy to be here and greetings to everyone joining from across the world. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists today, and just to ground this, this is the 27th edition of the Partnership Summit, along with this, where we're having this B20 meeting. It's a privilege for us to be joined by close to 200 speakers from more than 40 countries, which includes 20 overseas ministers, 7 Indian ministers, 25 global CXOs, and more than 100 heads of institutions, leaders, experts from around the world. The Partnership Summit will have 50 sessions spread over 3 days, including 7 country sessions, and will witness participation of delegates from more than 100 countries and 50 participants at the virtual investment pavilion. So welcome everyone. The COVID-19 pandemic, still not behind us, but it's fundamentally transformed the way businesses work, as it has changed the way people work, interact, communicate, or commute. More and more organizations have adopted digital workplaces, with some adopting a hybrid model and some choosing to fully stay remote even now. With organizations dramatically changing the way they work in response to the pandemic and the changing landscape of business community, it's critical to assess how businesses can continue to collaborate in a productive and an efficient manner. Because the private sector really plays a vital role in economic development and in achieving inclusive and sustainable growth targets. So we need to address the challenges we currently face, the challenges that we will continue to face while the pandemic is with us, and how we will engage and help, make our work more relevant and real along with governments. So the Business B20 engagement group of the G20 represents the business community, as you know, or the private sector, and the drafts policy recommendations for actioning on pertinent issues. To give you a brief history, it was established in the year 2010. It's one of the most prominent engagement groups of the G20 and has played a key role in engaging the international business community with G20 decision makers and governments. So, as you all know, it's become a powerful forum with the G20 over the last few years, and the recommendations have been increasing every year. So everything that we do and say continuously has an impact in how policies will unfold among the world, especially the primary focus in areas of trade, governance, financial regulation, corruption, employment, human capital, among others. Now, more than ever, it's crucial for the B20 to step in to coordinate efforts to reduce the vulnerabilities and challenges faced by businesses, especially the small ones, as a result of this pandemic. Building resilient business systems and practices, along with ensuring preparedness for future shocks, such as pandemics and other global warming issues, must be given the utmost priority. At the same time, adoption of advanced modern technology tools and ensuring its equitable access to all businesses, small, medium, large, would be imperative for sustainable and inclusive growth. And the B20 must facilitate and ensure the commitments made by the G20 leaders at the extraordinary summit are fulfilled. Now, CII, as you saw in that really nice video at the beginning, has been integrally involved with B20 since its inception and represents Indian industry at this forum. We have a range of activities and initiatives underway for engaging with B20. But having said all this and given you a background of what it is that the B20 really does, the global imperative of what we need to do more fast, more furiously, and the structure of how it will be done, it is now time for me to hand over to this esteemed panel of business leaders from the B20 group who are with us today. And we've been actually fortunate in CII to have worked with many of them over the years. So this is not an engagement which has taken place just today for this afternoon, but I think it's a result of a great foundation that has been built over the years, and this foundation is actually achieving results, which is so important. So may I request all the panelists, who are with us today, to give us brief opening remarks, and after the opening remarks, maybe we can have time for a few questions. So, with no further ado, I want to thank all of you and actually invite the first speaker of this evening, who is this afternoon, wherever we may be in the world, is she's the current chair, Ms. Emma Marcigaglia. She's the chair of B20 Italy 2021 and also the chief executive officer of Marcegaglia Holding. She's previously a member of several business high-level groups and roundtables of the European Commission, as well as companies, banks, foundation boards. Emma Marcegaglia has really, she is truly an expert to be able to give us her opinion of how the B20 can engage with the G20 and make those deliberations so much more active and perspective. May I hand over to you, Emma? Do we have Emma?
Is she on mute?
We're just seeing a painting there.
Yeah.
I don't think she's joined us yet.
Renuka, I see Hanny Rosenbaum, my next speaker.
Yeah, you can.
May I move to that?
Yes, please.
So while we wait for Emma to join us, may I welcome and invite for opening remarks Ms. Hanny Rosenbaum, who's the Executive Director of Business at OECD. We all know that OECD and its members guides the strategy and policy engagement from their Paris-based office, and it ensures that it adequately reflects the views of national member organizations and the communications of the OECD and stakeholders. So thank you for being here with us. We know that you have such a distinguished career in the European Union and across many, many different roles in Europe. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And let me just pick up by what you said. Indeed, we've had a long and fruitful cooperation with CII, which we look forward to continuing going forward. Let me also thank you for inviting me to speak on this very distinguished panel. I'm very pleased to be here with Marta Blanco, who's actually our Trade Committee Vice Chair and actively involved also in our BIAC business at OECD work. Emma, we've had an excellent cooperation in the context of the B20 Italy. I'd also like to thank Emma when she joins for this excellent cooperation we've had. And of course, I'm delighted also to be here with Indonesia B20, and we look forward to cooperation for the next year, and of course the CII for the year afterwards. Now, to start with, I'd just like to make a few remarks about business at OECD. For those who do not know us, we are the officially recognized business voice to the OECD. We have had 6 decades of constructive and close cooperation with the OECD at all levels. We represent the leading business and employers organizations in OECD countries and beyond. So we have COE here on the panel today, our Spanish member, Confindustria as our Italian member. And we also work very closely with non-member economies. And again, we are very proud and privileged to have had a constructive and excellent cooperation with CII since 2006. Now, our work with the OECD focuses on a wide range of policy issues, which are also very relevant to global business and which are also very high on the G20 and B20 agendas. Let me just mention trade and investment, employment and skills, sustainability and climate, digitalization, innovation, health, and integrity, anti-corruption. Now, why is the OECD so important for business? First of all, broadly, but also in the G20 context. First, the OECD stands for open markets, economic development, and multilateralism, which is now more important than ever. The OECD has a very important role in fostering a level playing field. It does this, among other issues, through the legal instruments it has, global standards in the areas of investment, responsible business conduct, anti-corruption, tax, digital, to name just a few. The OECD provides evidence-based analysis and policy recommendations, many of which underpin reforms at the national level. And finally, the OECD provides strategic foresight for the challenge ahead. And as the crisis has shown us, this is now more important than ever because business needs certainty. Now, just also want to say a few words about the role of the OECD in the context of the G20. As we all know, at the invitation of the presidency of the different G20s, different key international organizations participate very actively in the G20 process. And the OECD has acted as a regular strategic advisor and close partner to the G20. Now, what does the OECD do? I mean, the OECD participates in the G20 working groups. It provides data, analysis, proposals for specific topics. The OECD also helps finding consensus around the priorities set by the different presidencies. And very important, the OECD helps to serves as an implementation arm because the presidencies change, the OECD is always there. So the OECD helps ensure consistency and makes sure that certain mandates are being implemented. Now, to say a few words about mandates that are given to the OECD, actually looking at the communique that came out of the Italian G20, there were 16 quotes of the OECD, where the G20 referred to the important OECD work or gave new mandates to the OECD. Now, as a strategic partner to the G20, the OECD has worked with the Italian G20 presidency on all the priorities, including structural policy, the work on women, the work on youth employment, social protection, looking at the opportunities for digitalization, taxation, trade, investment, health, and environmental issues. Now, we as Business at OECD work, of course, very closely with the OECD and have the opportunity to help shape the mandates that go from the G20 to the OECD. I'd just like to mention a few specific mandates which are very high on our agenda. I mean, first of all, tax, where the OECD has really become the go-to organization and is very actively involved in the implementation of the BEPS agreement. There's the mandate to address tax challenges arising from the digital economy. And just to say that this keeps our members now extremely busy, because I mean, there's one thing to have the high-level mandates, but we, the business community, need to be there as these mandates are being implemented. And as I said, I mean, this keeps our members very, very busy at the moment to implement this very ambitious tax agenda. I'd also just like to mention corporate governance. At the last G20, there was a call to review the OECD G20 corporate governance principles. These are global principles which are not only an OECD legal instrument, but also accepted by the G20. So again, we as Business at OECD sit at the table as this important instrument is being revised. And then, Chair, you mentioned the important cooperation on anti-corruption. Here, both the OECD and the B20 and we, Business at OECD, have really been partners with the G20 to work on the implementation of the important mandates. Now, a few more words about our role as Business at OECD as a partner to the B20. I mean, first of all, we've had a long-standing cooperation, and I think this is a proof of our role as a prominent, global, and widely recognized business organization. We are also, of course, the official channel to the OECD, so this also underlines our importance to be involved because we can influence the OECD as the OECD works on the important G20 mandates. Also, our member organizations often hold the B20 presidencies, which also gives us like a close link. For example, we had Confindustria having the lead for the B20 in Italy, BDI, BDA for Germany, Caden for Japan. And of course, we very much look forward to working with CII going forward. So we have served as network partners to the rotating B20 presidencies since the summit in Cannes in France in 2011. We have been engaged in the various B20 task forces, both at the secretariat level and making sure that our committee leadership is actively involved. And then I would also like to underline that we organize an annual joint meeting together with the OECD and the B20 to promote the business priorities at the B20, G20, OECD level to make sure that there is alignment. And of course, we look forward to continuing organizing these meetings on an annual basis. I just very briefly like to refer to our cross-cutting priorities. We just last week had our annual planning meeting. And of course, these are also priorities we try to focus and support in our discussions with the B20. Of course, we'd like to boost the recovery through business-led growth and competitive markets. We would like to ensure a fair and growth-oriented taxation system. This is, as I mentioned, very high on our agenda now. We promote open markets for sustainable economic recovery. The OECD has huge capacity in work on trade and investment. We would like to create the conditions for a jobs-rich recovery. We need to really put people at the heart of the recovery. We need to treat health as an investment in our future, and we work towards resilience of our healthcare systems. Innovation and digital technologies is another priority for us, where the OECD is really the go-to organization. We would like to advance a clear and common vision for sustainable green recovery. We would like to ensure responsible business conduct and integrity at the global level, also for global level playing field. And Madam Chair, you refer to the importance of also getting SMEs on board. This is something very close to our heart. We would like to support smaller companies in their recovery efforts. Now, in closing, just a few words about the importance of building forward better. Of course, we cannot be taken by surprise again. We simply cannot afford this. We need to be better prepared. We need predictability, transparency, and that's why we believe the role of the OECD is so important. Just like to mention one point which is particularly important in this respect, and that is global supply chains. And here we've worked very closely with the OECD to make sure that we keep global supply chains going. And last but not least, I'd just like to note that building forward better must go hand in hand with sustainability considerations. This must be a priority for governments. It must be a priority for business. We must move from commitment to action. And we must make sure that the business community is seen as a solutions partner in this respect. And for this, of course, we need a favorable business environment, which is based on competition, fair competition, which is based on a pro-innovation policy framework. We need to address unnecessarily regulatory burdens. We need to work on sustainable finance, investment, sustainable infrastructure, and last but not least, skills and education. And skills are so important to address the future challenges at hand. And I would like to close here and look forward to an interesting discussion. And thank you again for inviting us to participate.
Thank you so much, and definitely reflected the fact that business does play a very important role with enabling economies and governments to move forward. And with that, I'd like to invite the chair of B20 Italy 2021, Ms. Emma Marcicaglia, to briefly just give us some startup points and maybe touch upon something that was the gist of what you spoke about, how we can move from being very transactional with governments to actually being part of the solution, and how do we build that trust in the bridge?
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure for me to be here. I really want to warmly thank the CII also for the long-standing relationship with Confindustria, for having invited me at your very important partnership summit. And also I'd like to thank the Ministry of Commerce and Industry of India, which is the co-organizer of this prominent event. Let me also say hello and mirroring and support what Henny has said. Our cooperation with OECD and Business OECD has been incredibly strong. And also, of course, I want to also say hello to my good friend Shinta, who will be the B20 Indonesia leader, and she worked a lot with us, so I'm sure she will do an incredible work. So I try to be quick and go directly to what you said. Well, first of all, also let me say, this is very important, that we really appreciate a lot the importance of the contribution that the Indian companies has done to our B20 Italy. As you know, our B20 Italy has seen an incredible support and participation. We had more than 1,000 delegates and 2,000 participants covering all the G20 countries and also all the business sectors and the big multinational, but also the small, medium enterprise. And we had very important also Indian companies taking part to our work. I just want to remember Mr. Singh, chairman of NTPC, and Mr. Shangvi, CEO of Sun Pharmaceutical, and they respectively were the co-chair of two very important task force for us. They were the Energy and Resource Efficiency and Action Council on Sustainability on Global Emergency. So I have been probably you know, president of Confindustria and president of Business Europe, and I know how important it is to have, all the most important federation of industry taking part and work together really to make a difference. So let me say that my takeaway from our work is the following. First of all, let me say that as we know, we have worked in a situation that were very difficult. We were, we worked during the pandemic, and apart from the last meeting, all our work has been done by remote, which, from one side was a pity because we missed the chance to meet each other and work together on a physical base. But on the other hand, having everything by remote give us the opportunities to really have very prominent CEOs working with us, a lot of, exchange of ideas. And so I think, also the level of the participation has been very, very high. And this is something very, very important. So where we are now is clear. I think it is clear that we know that we faced probably the worst sanitary, economic, and social disaster from World War II. We saw that something that was already going on was really exacerbated. I'm thinking about the extreme poverty rising that rose, disparities and inequalities that really went very high, and a lot of difficulties on from business. Now, what we see now, as you know, is that there are some encouraging signals. So the global economic recovery is doing well. It's still, uneven and differentiated in different countries, and where, vaccination has been done well and with a lot of access to vaccine, the recovery is stronger. Where this is not possible, the recovery is lower. But we saw some, we are seeing some progress, and also, if we think at trade, as we know, there has been a strong drop in trade of merchandising and also in investment. Now we are recovering. So the first thing I want to tell you, and this is also probably the most important takeaway from our B20, this is clear, but we underline this very clearly, that only with a strong multilateral cooperation and collaboration among different countries, we could do the difference. And I think that if we were able to face this incredible and so painful situation of the pandemic, it was because we really had a lot of cooperation and collaboration. Of course, we need more. It should also be more also during the pandemic, but I think it's clear that revamping multilateralism was one of our leading priority of the B20, and I'm sure will be also the priority of Shinta in Indonesia, and I'm sure will be also your priority for the very important G20 that you will lead as India in 2023. But this is not enough, as it has been said before by Henny. We also need a very strong public-private partnership. I think we have to say clearly that without the role of business to build better and also to face the situation is absolutely key. We are the one who knows the market. We are the one who are very pragmatic. We see solution where the others see problems. We know how to work together when there are very difficult situations. So I think the role of business has to be clear, has to be very important. Without the innovation of business, without investment by business, without creative ideas of business, we will not face climate change, we will not face the development of digitalization, we will not even solve the problem of inequality. So we have to say very clearly that our role is very important. And coming back to your question, how can we really have this role, and how this role has to be recognized to us? Well, what we try to do as a Business 20 in Italy, maybe was innovating in continuity. So of course we took some of the very good ideas that were coming from the previous B20. For example, we confirm this idea to have a strong commitment on gender equality that was coming from Saudi Arabia. We took also other idea, but then we also decided to innovate. And what we thought that the most important thing to be heard and to speak up and to be heard by the governments was to be very ambitious, but also very pragmatic. So what we have done, probably we know, is that we present some policy recommendations, 32, but for all the policy recommendation and the action, we decided to have 3 or 4 leading KPIs, providing measurable indicators connecting to the UN SDGs and to the 3 Ps of the Italian G20, there was people, planet, prosperity. So we said, well, we want to see progress on gender equality. So what is the percentage of women now taking part to the global market in labor is 32. We want to go to 40, just this is an example, by 2024. And we want to measure this, what will happen in 2022, 2023, and 2024. And so we decided altogether to have KPIs on all our action, because this is a way to say also to the governments and to head of governments, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a moment where we have to make a nice and fine declaration. This is such a very critical moment where we have to be very pragmatic. So our ideas and your ideas as governments has to be measured. We want to see how they will be implementing. This is also a way to have a long-term view, because the big problems cannot be solved in 1 year or with one G20 or B20, but will have to be faced also in the future. So I think what we tried to do was to be, as I said, very ambitious and very pragmatic. And I think we succeed in that. The other thing we have done, which I make an advice to you to go on with that. We did 2 interesting things. We had a lot of G20, B20 dialogue. So we have more than 13. So we met all the ministers of the Italian government that were the leader of the different ideas and of the different subjects. So, for example, we met the minister of energy transition, and we say, well, this is our ideas. We discuss with them, with him, and also other ministers. So we try really to convey and to explain our policy recommendation to our ministers, because we thought that this was, and also we have a discussion with them, that there were some points where we were not in line, but we discussed a lot with them. And I think this was also another interesting way and tools to try to have our ideas to be taken by the G20. And we did also another thing, and you know this because we also organized one with you. We also organized around 10 dialogue with the most important global confederation of industry. So we did one with you, we did it with the CBI, with BDI, with France, with all the others. And in all this, we met, not only, of course, we met the president of the Federation of Industry, but we normally met the Sherpa, in your case of India for the G20. We met in some cases also ministers of that country. So also in this case, we had the chance to convey also to the other governments, not only to the Italian governments, our idea, our policy recommendation, so that, you know, maybe the CII was also able to help us in conveying the idea to the Indian governments and to the Indian ministers. So this is what we have done. And I have to tell you that, you know, we saw the responses, what we call the responsiveness report. So it's a way to see, to measure the degree of acceptance of our recommendation against the statement of the G20 ministerial meetings in the Rome Leaders Declaration. And what I can tell you is that the ratio is 84, is probably one of the highest in history. So our ideas has been taken. So and I don't want to be too long. The idea here is really to be ambitious, pragmatic. We had a lot of work together with all our people. And at the end, I think our ideas on climate change, on digital, on gender equality, on how to be prepared to next, pandemic or cyber attack, on health, on all this, on skills, all the points, were taken by our government. And then with this KPI, we will also be ready to measure the implementation and to say to the governments, ladies and gentlemen, you're not doing what you have said. And we think this is very important, because I think what business has to bring to all these tables is ambition and pragmatism. And so we think and we hope that we have done our job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Emma. You must have heard this a million times that said, never let a serious crisis go to waste. But what the rest of that is actually what Rahm Emanuel said, is that it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before. And I think a lot of what you elaborated right now were things that could not have been thought to do before. So thank you so much for what you're doing. And I'm sure that that the chairs that come after you will definitely will take note of these and actually build on them. And with that, I'd like to go. So thank you, and go to our next speaker, who's Ms. Marta Blanco Quesada. Very interestingly, for our B20 to the G20 dialogue, she has degrees. She has a BA in business science, went on and studied political science, holds an MBA, and was a director of cabinet for the Secretary of State for Trade, and served on many boards. Currently, Marta Blanco is president of the CII International, president of International Relations and committee of CII, the vice president of business at OECD Trade Committee, the vice chair of business Europe's International Relations Committee, and the Spanish representative at G20 Empower. So welcome, and we'd like to briefly hear your opening remarks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I am very happy to be here to participate in this roundtable. Thank you, CII and the Department for Promotion of Industry and International Trade for inviting me to participate with these distinguished female colleagues. I am very happy. So I would like to begin by saying that I agree with what Hani and Emma have already said about the important and relevant role of B20. COE, the Spanish Confederation for Industries and Employers, has been an active member of B20 processes since the B20 French presidency in 2011. Since then, we have been involved in almost every B20 area of work, both through our direct participation, but also indirectly through our membership to Business at OECD, as Hani knows, and through the Global Business Coalition. Both of them are knowledge partners in the B20 framework. What we see is that B20's agenda has been evolving over time in response to new priorities and interests in the international agenda. So COE's participation has evolved accordingly to these changes. In this regard, we have been involved in the Women in Business Action Council and special initiatives since they were launched 2 years ago, and placed at the core of B20 objectives as a horizontal issue. Also, we are part of the G20 Empower Alliance that works towards the increase of women participation in private leadership positions. But I would like to make some comments on why we consider that B20 is of utmost importance. We give to this multilateral forum a great relevance, driven in part by the multinational nature of our member companies and the value and influence of international markets development to the sustainable growth and progress of our own economy. In this regard, B20 discussions and works have always been placed at the center of our priorities, especially in recent years, in which we have seen, as Emma has pointed out, an unprecedented international context marked by a considerable increase in uncertainty and complexity when doing business. We firmly support a rule-based international system as the only way to deal with the global and enormous challenges we have ahead. This is the only way to overcome the great challenges that are arising in a variety of fields. Let me mention some of them: trade, investment, climate change, sustainable finance, and health. Harry has already mentioned most of them. What we see is that traditional concepts and principles that have been commonly accepted and implemented until now by the international community are being questioned. Thus, B20 is required to play a more important role in order to convey a unified private sector message to the G20 governments and respond adequately to the current crisis and prevent market fragmentation. That's very important in order to guarantee the level playing field, as was said before. We believe that market fragmentation is not an answer to many of the challenges that we want to deal with. So it's important that the B20 community is able to find a balanced solution between the fair but confronting interests that are arising among the different G20 countries in a great number of areas. So if we bear in mind that G20 countries account for more than 80% of the global GDP and 60% of the world population, it reaffirms that this framework is one of the most appropriate ones in order to reach agreement on shared and fundamental principles and standards. So I think that's the main point of this relevance. And my second comment is about how we consider we can reinforce the role of B20. Emma was mentioning the KPIs, the performance indicators. I think that's a very pragmatic way to reinforce the role of B20. And from our side, I think coordination efforts at national level between private and public sector is also very important in the case of Spain in order to push negotiations and outcomes in G20 summits. COE and our members maintain a fluent interaction with our Spanish G20 Sherpa. So we take these opportunities to highlight business priorities. And also to reinforce the role of the B20, I think it's important to have those horizontal task forces. For instance, in the case of trade policy should not be treated as an independent issue. Trade policy is being increasingly influenced by a wide range of policies, from climate to social and industry-related ones, to mention some of them. So in this regard, it is crucial to break down the silos and treat them, the different themes of the B20, from a cross-sectional point of view. Indeed, this has partially already been done by the recent B20 presidencies, such as the Italian one, with the creation of horizontal action councils, such as the Sustainability and Global Emergencies, or the Special Initiative on Women Empowerment. And we think also it's important to have a high-level B20 interaction with G20 government representatives. It is fundamental to ensure, in the context of B20, a direct interaction between private sector and governments in the framework of B20 summits. In this regard, we value very positively the creation of advocacy caucus or similar bodies that enables this high-level private-public dialogue, aiming at turning business recommendations into concrete actions. And finally, let me say something about the way forward of the B20 works for future presidencies. I think we need to go on having these unified messages with a common agenda for the same issues that are important for business community. And in terms of topics, I would mention some of them that will be important in the next months and years: health and COVID-19, pandemic prevention, preparedness and response, economic recovery, trade and investment, climate and energy, or sustainable development. So I think we have many challenges ahead, but I think we have also the road very prepared to face these challenges we have all together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that we'll move on now. I think we have about 10-13 minutes more. We have one more speaker who will come to us more as a broadcast. Ms. Shinta Kamdani is the chair B20 Indonesia 22 and the CEO of the Sintesa Group. Needless to say that she has been among the Forbes Asia's 50 most powerful businesswomen, and she is the CEO of the Shinta Group, which has 16 subsidiaries. More than that, she's involved in a numerous amount of business and social activities, and with the government and with Kadin Indonesia, that's the Chamber of Commerce and the Employers Association. So let's just play her address. She couldn't be with us live today.
Mr.
And maybe we'll have some time for some.
Banerjee, Director General of CCI, Ms. Emma Marigaglia, Chair of B20 Italy 2021, and Chief Executive Officer of Marigaglia Holding SPA. Ms. Hani Rosenbaum, Executive Director of Business at OECD. Mrs. Marta Blanco Quesada, President of CII International and the Spanish representative to the B20. Friends and colleagues of the Indian business community, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and greetings from Jakarta. Thank you for the opportunity to address the Indian business community in the Confederation of Indian Industry, the Indian Ministry of Commerce, to explain the agenda of B20 Indonesia presidency, primarily in geopolitical and strategic development, international trade and multilateralism, economic and finance, investment, as well as cooperation in healthcare. As the country which will host the B20 after Indonesia, it is Indonesia's earnest intention to engage in the Indian business community as much as possible and as early as possible in our presidency, not only for the sake of inclusivity, but also for the sake of maintaining consistency across B20 presidency when we pass the leadership to India. I'm very pleased that the agenda of this summit is not far off to Indonesia B20 presidency agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, before I explain B20 Indonesia agenda, I need to point out that B20 Indonesia presidency wants to be relevant and impactful in addressing the immediate challenges that the B20 business community face in the year of our presidency. In 2022, we perceive that COVID-19 pandemic will still be looming over the global economy, challenging economic recovery and growth in many countries. The World Bank, in its recent report, stated that although the global economy is set to make the most robust post-recession recovery in 80 years, The global recovery is expected to be uneven across countries, with major economies expected to grow strongly while many developing economies are lagging behind. Global growth in 2021 is expected to expand strongly at 5.6%, but primarily driven by the strong recovery in major economies such as the United States and China. Despite the growth forecasts in almost all regions in the world have been predicted to be higher than before, many developing countries are still grappling with COVID-19 and what is likely to be a long shadow cast by it. Regardless the positive progress we have throughout 2021, global growth in 2021 is expected to be 3.22% lower than pre-pandemic projections, and per capita GDP in many emerging and developing economies is expected to remain below pre-COVID-19 peaks for an extended period of time. A sizable proportion to the gap in global recovery is caused by countries' unequal access and capability to overcome COVID-19 as health crisis. Data showed that COVID-19 vaccination is more available in most upper middle income and high income countries, but are scarce in most developing countries. It is reflected in the COVID-19 vaccination rates, which vary by country, ranging from less than 1% for the population of least developed countries, while in the upper middle income and advanced countries, vaccination rate is mainly over 60% of their population, with some developed countries even have the luxury to vaccinate over 90% of their population, giving booster shots and even develop them so-called vaccine tourism without adopt the asymmetric rollout of vaccine exacerbates the economic blow and development setback in developing countries. In 2022, global trade and investment volumes are expected to fully recover to pre-pandemic level. Behind this optimistic outlook again, the rate of recovery in trade and investment flows varies across the globe. The developing and emerging economies have been hit the hardest by the uneven recovery, not only due to the difficulty of obtaining vaccine, but also due to the uneven capacity to provide fiscal support to boost recovery through pandemic stimulus and the widening gap in developing countries' capability to catch up and adapt to the accelerated technology adoption in business process, which has become more and more important for business to survive. This highlights the need of creating an equitable economic recovery for all G20 members and beyond. The challenge is not just to recover the economy to the pre-pandemic era, but also to rebuild the global economy better, with more resilience and inclusivity in growth by reducing disparities from developing, emerging, and developed countries, as well as by addressing the disparities between big enterprises and small-medium enterprises, which are the backbone of the global economy. Along with resilience and inclusivity, B20 Indonesia also perceived that post-pandemic global economy also need to transform to also enable a sustainable growth amid multiple global crises and the rapidly changing global economic landscape. It is in this background that B20 Indonesia presidency believes that cooperation among G20 business and leaders should be driven to be focused on advancing innovative, inclusive, and collaborative growth. Ladies and gentlemen, under the aim of this theme, B20 Indonesia 2022 will focus on three main agendas, namely embracing a collaborative recovery and growth boosting an innovative global economy, and forging an inclusive and sustainable future. This agenda is shared in 6 task forces and 1 action council. Agenda on growth, competitiveness, sustainability, and technology are shared among the task forces and action council. However, let me highlight to you the key priorities in Trade and Investment Task Force of B20 Indonesia, which might be of highest relevance to you in addressing trade governance, preparedness to future shocks, resilience in supply chain, facilitating technology adoption, enforcing sustainability, and creating economic inclusivity among B20, which are the key interests in this session. For B20 Indonesia, trade and investment are key instruments to global recovery and growth towards an innovative, inclusive, and collaborative growth. The trading system is facing increased protectionism and increased disorder as a result of the pandemic. WTO report on G20 trade in 2021 found that G20 countries experiencing a 10-fold increase in the percentage of trade that are affected by trade restrictive measures compared to 2001. With cumulative trade restriction and lockdown measures related to COVID-19 in the past 1.5 years, resulting in major disruption in global trade, restoring the openness, fairness, and efficiency of the global economy is an utmost priority across G20 countries. Rolling back pandemic and non-pandemic trade restrictive measures and trade distortive subsidies are one of B20 Indonesia key priorities to ensure that trade and investment can be a driving force to the economic recovery. B20 Indonesia perceive that reform to the global trading system and the WTO is a must to facilitate recovery, to upgrade the rule-based system, to trade and to provide an equitable platform for countries and businesses of all sizes to tap into the global economic potential. As global trade and supply chain are put in chaos due to pandemic measures, WTO and the multilateral trading system need to be the focal point to restore order and to orchestrate global cooperation for recovery, sustainable growth, and mitigate future crises through trade and investment. B20 also believe that the reopened global economy should happen as soon as possible in a non-discriminatory manner. It is not only about fairness and equitability in access to vaccine procurement and distribution, it is about the non-discriminatory treatment to movement of people in pandemic by universal health risk factor instead of by nationality or by vaccine. It is also about non-discriminatory treatment and mindfulness of development gap in trade between developed and developing countries, especially in the wake of many health and sustainable standards. Ladies and gentlemen, in shaping the future of global economy to meet the major transformation brought by pandemic, B20 Indonesia put a strong priority on facilitating innovation, digitalization, and technology adoption to support future global development and mitigation to future crises. We promote strategic use and collaboration in technology, data, and science to address and mitigate global crises. We promote global governance to facilitate trade via digital means, promoting homogeneity of standards and improving cooperation in cross-border electronic exchange of data to improve efficiency of global value chain, as well as reducing red tapes to cross-border trade and investment in digital infrastructure.
Thank you.
Economic digitalization and technology 4.0 so that women in business and MSME have greater opportunities to tap into global economy. Speaking of women in business and MSME, Indonesia as a developing country took our B20 presidency as an opportunity to better voice out the interests of developing countries in global economy. Empowering women in business and MSME is our utmost important agenda, primarily as they are the one which are hit the hardest in pandemic. Thus, we place a significant priority to amplify support for MSME and women business to take part in global supply and value chain by promoting lower cost of doing business, simplified trade measures, and standard compliance for MSME and women in business, as well as financing assistance to trade and to adopt technology in business. Last but not least, B20 Indonesia make it our duty to contribute to achieving sustainable development as we pledge in the SDG and the transition to a greener global economy. Thus, our presidency put a strong priority to create support to accelerate the clean energy transition and adoption of circular economy, primarily by resource-based industry. We promote liberalization of trade in environmental goods, regulatory cooperation to improve the financial viability and cost competitiveness of green and circular business model compared to exploitative business model, promoting global collaboration in carbon trade as alternative financing option to accelerate green transition and decarbonization and incentivize investment in green projects. Ladies and gentlemen, these are only a glimpse of what B20 Indonesia is up to next year. There are more agendas to be discussed beyond what I have mentioned. We are going to discuss more of just transition to green economy. We are going to discuss more on facilitating economic digitalization. We are going to discuss more of skills transformation in the wake of accelerated industry 4.0 and many other agenda. Although B20 Indonesia has set our priorities, I would like you to know that they are not priorities that are set in stone. B20 Indonesia wants the output and the recommendation that we come up with at the end of the presidency with the outputs and recommendation that will represent the interests of all B20 business community and benefit as much global economic stakeholder as possible. Thus, we put a great effort to ensure the highest degree of inclusivity and representativeness of business from all B20 countries in our presidency. In this opportunity, I would like to invite the Indian business community to join B20 Indonesia discussion next year. Please assume your part with other B20 countries in actively constructing policy recommendation that will support the collective interest in creating a speedy pandemic recovery as well as strong, resilient, innovative, and sustainable global growth in the future. Thank you and see you in Bali.
Thank you for that. And we're completely out of time. And lest you think that it's only the ladies that have a voice, I have got great comments from a lot of the men. We just don't have time for them, but we will have them interact maybe directly with all of you. But thank you so much for participating. I think that clearly established that B20 has a great role to play with G20. And there's a lot of inclusiveness that is required. Refreshing that that the women had the first and the last message to give here and everything in between. So it was an interesting session. Thank you. And thank you so much for everybody that to everyone that participated. My apologies that we're 5 minutes over. Bye.